All right, folks. It is 2:01. Can everyone hear me and see my screen? Great. So, welcome to the Women in GIS June 2025 GIS in Action Lightning Talks, brought to you by the Women in GIS Professional Development Committee. I'm kind of shocked that it's already June already. I'm gonna let you guys know that. It's wild. Just for those who have not attended one of these talks before or know what Women in GIS is, Women in GIS is an international organization where we are an inclusive group of women coming together to provide resources and opportunities for success as you navigate your geospatial career. Everyone is welcome here, and we're big on networking, so drop your LinkedIn in the chat and we can get connected. Today, I'm your host. My name is Megan Engel. I'm new to the Professional Development Committee, and this is my first time hosting a lightning talk, so you might need to bear with me a little bit. So our lightning talks take place the first Friday of every month. And this year we're focusing on GIS in action. So if you want to participate in future lightning talks, you can submit submit that information on the Women in GIS page. We would like to thank our sponsors. Thank you to our platinum sponsor, Esri, as well as our additional sponsors that are listed here. If your organization is interested in being a sponsor, you're also able to do that within the Women in GIS webpage, and we appreciate all the continued support from our sponsors. Today's speakers, we have Donna and Ariel, and they are going to be talking to us about the Sequoia Forest Oral Recording Project. And a little bit about them is Donna is both a member of I'm not going to do great with this name, Tubatabalas of Kern County, one of the tribes there. And Donna, maybe you can pronounce that better for me when you come on. And then she is also the CEO of the California Tribal GIS. And then we also have Ariel, and they are an independent data consultant who runs the Octopus Pond Consulting firm. So before I move it over to them on what they're going to talk about, you can post questions in the chat and there'll be a Q&A session at the end. So let's get started.
Well, good morning. My name is Donna Miranda-Begay, and thank you for the introduction. Yes, I'm Tabatalabo from Kern Valley, but I'm also Tule River Yokut, Paiute, and half Navajo, or Dene, as they say. And I'm so happy to join the group here today. Been pretty busy with a lot of work, but I'm so happy we finally got the Sequoia Forest Oral History Project done. And I want to thank Colby Smith for, I think it was back in October, one of the Women in GIS committee forums. I kind of mentioned I was going to start this story map project and I'd never built one before. And probably that same day, I got an email from Colby to say she'd like to help out. And she too doesn't have any experience with story map. So I was like, okay, but she's done some mapping and that. So I was very happy with that. So we kind of learned together, but she took it on full steam. And we did learn a valuable lesson with ISRI software. We borrowed one of her old company's organizational account for her to work in. And then I had my account. And so, yeah, it looked like it was working pretty good when we joined the accounts together. But once she had to kind of move away because she was getting a full-time job, we learned that, oh my gosh, where's our content? so we had to, she luckily knew Python. And so we were able to use some Python scripts to get the stuff migrated over. And then Ariel stepped in. Oh my gosh, Ariel Chamberlain, she's with us and she's going to do the walkthrough today. And she also volunteered to help out. And she actually also early on said, I'd like to help, but I thought, well, I'll give Colby a chance first. And then later on, I said, Ariel, I think we need your help. So it's all worked out. So since about February forward, we've been really putting it together and in my account. And so it's out there now. And I posted a link to it. So hopefully you guys can visit it a little bit later because I know Ariel is going to do a walkthrough of it. And I just so appreciate Women in GIS and the volunteerism that you guys have offered. And I'm always learning off of you guys. So thank you for this opportunity. So I'll turn it over to Ariel.
Thank you, Donna. That was a great intro. And I want to reflect also, thank you so much for hosting this. This is awesome community building opportunity for us. So I also wanted to add to what she was saying about the transferring. It's a matter of not being able to transfer the data directly from one organization to another, in case anybody's not dealt with that without using Python scripts. And then after the Python scripts were used, we had to do a little bit of relinking things, unfortunately. So you had to redo all the links or whatever. So as she said, Colby totally started this project. Colby's the mastermind behind this project. So I don't want to take any of her glory. She just happens to be working a lot and doesn't have as much time to be able to come to these. So we're going to present without her. But she did most of this work at the beginning, especially. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see projects. Let me get to the right screen. Sorry about that. There we go. All right. So this is the landing page. We used a story map for the landing page as well. Sorry, I'm just getting all the way back to the top real quick. Here we go. And so basically the point of this project was to take these tapes that had been recorded back in the 80s by the Forest History Project in the US Sequoia Forest National Forest Area. And these histories are, kind of just been sitting on tapes for a while, and we wanted to get those stories out so that people could learn about what it would like to live there, especially during logging days. A lot of these stories take place during the height of logging in California. And so there's a lot of insight just to how that whole region changed during that time period. And so we started by just doing this overview map where you can see just sort of the general idea of what the story is. There's some pictures of the tapes, kind of in case anybody here is young enough to not know what a cassette tape looks like. And then, yeah, so the Sequoia Forest, this is where we just tell the story of the forest. And we zoom in and kind of show where it lands and the districts that it's broken into. And it shows the Kern River, which Donna mentioned earlier. So the Kern River Valley is where she lives. And so this Kern River is one of the biggest rivers in the area. So we highlighted that in the overview. And it's got a north and a south fork. So we also used, in case you're wondering, these are blooms. So we use blooms to highlight things in here. So I'm just going to give you some tips and tricks as we go in case anybody doesn't know how to do certain things. A lot of these I learned as I was going as well. This is Lake Isabella. There actually used to be a town in the middle of this, which is pretty neat. It's been moved and relocated when they created the dam in 1953. And yeah, so it shows that some of these some of these stories take place from before when that dam place was put in place. So most of the elders live most of their lives in this general surrounding area. These are some of the bigger towns that are commonly mentioned within the stories. And then, so we also have, we link out to each individual story. So I'm going to go and show you Doc Dick, because this is one of, this is actually, I think, the only Native American story that we had. But he was a logger as well, which is also a very rare combination from his telling of it. And so for these ones, we started with just if there's a really good quote in there, we put it up there to kind of give you a sense of what they're like. I think these are kind of just, AI summaries of our notes, essentially. And so we did a lot of that just to save time. And then you can listen to it in his own words. So the recordings themselves are right here. So you can sit here and you can listen to him tell the story. And that's the story actually that I listened to and took notes on. And it was a really interesting listen. I highly recommend if you're curious about what it was like back then. And so this is all of the areas that he took place. And so we did these so that you can zoom in to each individual thing and sort of get a better idea of what's there up close. And We also did things like we did with the Kern River Valley. When you highlight a river, we put this bloom effect on it to sort of highlight it a little bit more when you select it. So that's what these links on the side are doing. They're just changing the map views to different places that are told about in the story. And then I want to go into a little bit of just behind the scenes. So when Colby was first doing this project, they, created a whole data set and then created a story map for each one. And then they realized, actually, we can just create one source data map and use that over and over and all of the things. So this is one of the things that made the project a lot easier when we did do the transfer, is that we could just transfer this one big one over and then redo the links. And so I just wanted to highlight that also. And I think that was the main things I wanted to point out. I will say that the interview tables down here that are not the top 4 have not been listened to and taken notes on. So they mostly just have the recordings as well as the location of the recording as a starting point. If anybody wants to get involved, at some point we may be taking volunteers if you want to start listening to the stories and taking notes on them. That's the most time consuming part of it, and the part that both Donna and I have not had much time for. And so if anybody wants to do that, that would be a way to sort of give to this project and be part of it. And I will go ahead and stop sharing. And Donna, did you have anything you wanted to add before we take questions?
No, actually, that's very good. In fact, once this got published a couple weeks ago, we put it out there. We probably might need to get a domain name so we can make it easier for folks to find it. But it is out there, and the U.S. Forest Service here in the Sequoia area really appreciated it. A lot of the locals that are involved with the history of our valley, like the Kernville Museum and the Senior Center, and even in Bakersfield, the Kern Council of Arts really loved it. And so, we're getting some good PR. I sent out a little media press release to some of the local folks, including even a museum out in the Ridgecrest area, which is about 45 miles east of this area in the desert there. So yeah, we're doing good. And the word out about women in GIS is a positive note. I can't encourage enough about how helpful the volunteer work has been. And if you are interested in listening to any of the links that doesn't have an intro like narrative, we are looking for help with that. And then I think Ariel or myself, either one, both of us would be available to receive your text information on that. And we'd be open to putting you down as a credit. And that was at the bottom of the story map page. And I just shared this with the ISRI folks this morning. I had a good meeting because I'm helping to host co-host the first ever California Native American Tribal GIS Summit, and it's going to be in Sacramento. And so all these links are I provided early on in the chat there. But the ISRI folks really impressed with women in GIS and the volunteerism and the work that we did on the story map. And they did tell me, yes, the challenge of moving content from one organization to the other. The bottom line is, I guess, not hurting the ownership aspect of it. So I guess that was why they have it that complicated, I guess. So yeah, thanks, Ariel. Really appreciate it. Good walkthrough. It's funny how I've looked at this project, but I still am learning little tidbits about its functionality. Again, you guys are making me look good, but you also are doing really well, and it's just all the work. And by the way, anybody listening here, maybe virtually would be a great thing if you want to attend the Tribal GIS Summit. It's going to be free. It's a 2-day summit. We've got some really good lineups. It's all California specific, but there's a lot to learn, and it is free, and there is a virtual aspect to the summit. So thank you.
That was awesome. I was telling Ariel before this call, I actually saw this on LinkedIn, I think last week when it was put out, and I was low-key obsessed. I think it's awesome work. I love how you guys incorporated the oral history into it with the recordings and everything. That adds such a personal level to the story. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think
I,
when I was going to add one little personal item, I do the Doc Dick is a Native American from the Dunlap Mono tribe, and I ran into his relatives at the conference just last week, and I gave them the link to let them know that this is out there. And I had earlier given them the digital copies a long time ago on a thumb drive, like last year, I think it was. But you could just see them leaning into their laptop and just putting, like expressions of dearness because two of them were the daughters of Doc Dick, and they're up in the elder age range now. And then their grandkids were there listening. And I just was like, wow, this is pretty incredible. And so all the recordings, the actual people that participated, they signed off on a waiver to go ahead and let this be out there. But I also, in 2010, when I got these cassette tapes, I contacted all the families, and several of them came into our tribal office to get copies of the recordings, and all the tapes were returned back to U.S. Forest Service. And the tapes were originally given to us to try to help out with our federal recognition efforts, but there weren't a whole lot of information about that could help with that. But in the meantime, our language program let me borrow their digital converter from tape to MP3s. And I think they're MP3 or MP4 format, I can't remember. But yeah, so, and that took a little while. So I listened to each set of tapes as I did the transfer to digital. So I was able to create that table that you see. So
you brought up having to transfer the and that's like not even something I thought of as needing to happen. So that is, I could imagine that was a lot to go through. And I guess you had talked about how moving content between the different organizations was hard. Would you say that was your biggest challenge, or was there something else that was more challenging with the project besides that?
Ariel, I'll let you speak to that one, I guess.
I'll say I think technically that was our biggest challenge. It's the time piece with listening to these tapes that takes the longest. And I think that's the thing that slows the work down the most. But yeah, technically that was the hardest thing I experienced. I can't speak for Colby, but that was the hardest thing I experienced. But I kind of like came on to help with that transition. So yeah.
Yeah. And then I have a nonprofit license with ISRI, so I have like 100 credits for any kind of support. And so I was so worried I was going to have to use all my credits to get the support. But our call was for free for the technical support, and then and all the stuff they provided. And then Colby, because she had knowledge of Python, that would have cost me to get the ISRI folks to help me do that part. So very helpful that the volunteerism saved me some ISRI credits.
Yeah, that is awesome. It is helpful having somebody on the team that knows Python that can help with some of those more technical things too. If you guys could expand on this project, or is there other opportunity with similar type recordings that this could be done elsewhere?
Yeah, I had when I shared this with, like, let's say the Native American Lands Conservancy, they're down by Joshua Tree area. They have a couple of Native American national monuments, I guess, or had surfaced up. And then I don't want to get into the political part, but they all of a sudden were kind of being threatened to not be a national park. But anyway, they would like to do a story map project also, trying to learn this process. I did with the ISRI company this morning. They're going to offer a story map walkthrough on how to create one, kind of thing. So we got some young youth that are going to join us at the summit. And I think the Native American Lands Conservancy folks, I'm going to encourage them to join the webinar, for that segment of our summit. So yeah, there's that. And then there's another group, I can't remember, somewhere in the Central Valley. They want to do the same thing, And again,
Oh, wow.
if you can get the foundation built, there's a lot of need for volunteerism to help some of these conservation groups get going, because they definitely don't have the skill sets, but they saw and they like what they saw.
And I'll just add that I think that these are really useful for really connecting people to people in place. So whenever you're talking about like conservation or social justice, like those are types of things that I think that we could use story maps more for to get people more connected to their emotional side as opposed to, staying in their head with the data stuff. Yeah, that's what I would add to it too.
Yeah, in our summit, we actually have an individual from the Yaqui tribe in Arizona who she wants to provide emotions landscape map. So I'm very curious about that one. So we did offer her some time in a workshop to provide that information. So we'll see how that goes. I'm still trying to reach her to see if I can see a demo of what it is she's going to present. But as you mentioned, the title of our summit, by the way, is the fact that we are looking at our meaning of place and empowering nations, and of all times right now we are really leaning on in California state government, tribal governments, and our federal partners. I feel for them. They're there 1 minute and then they're gone and then they come back and you just never know. So our summit's moving forward no matter what, and we're doing really well. Actually, we're picking up steam, and our agenda should be posted sometime next week. And behind the scenes, I'm doing survey 1, 2, 3 for all the presentation information, the call for registration, anything that's summit related that says go to this form or go to this link. That's all ISRI survey 1, 2, 3. So yeah, I'm pretty good at that one.
That's awesome. Yeah, there was one thing I did want to, hold on, I was writing something else down. So you had talked about volunteering with you guys and listening through these recordings. What's the best way if folks want to volunteer? Would they just email y'all, or is there a form we can fill out, like, to get involved? What can folks do?
Yeah, I think with Ariel and we have a Google Drive that we use to share a spreadsheet, keep it up to date. So that's kind of the one avenue there, that you can coordinate, maybe send an email to both Ariel and I think Ariel will probably take the lead on grabbing whatever content you can provide, and then she'll plug that into the actual story map page, for that individual recording. So yeah. Ariel, does that sound all right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, I put my email in the chat, and then you can also just, if you're in Women in GIS, you can message me via Slack and Women in GIS as well.
Ariel, do you know off the top of your head there, how we had like 20 something recordings, but how many more do we need to get the narrative for, like what they're actually kind of talking
We
about?
only have 4 so far. So if there's
Oh.
about 20 recordings, it's probably around 16 then. I don't know what the total number is, so I'm going
Yeah,
off your number.
and the recordings can range from 30 minutes to 2 hours. It just depends, and you don't have to write down everything, just kind of the major points, because there's going to be a lot of chit-chatting going on, but then there's going to get kind of the meat of the forestry related topics.
Yeah, and if you do want to volunteer, I'll go through in detail with you on what we actually want, because it's mostly just place related stuff. So if they're talking about a place, we want to highlight that in the map. But yeah, so you don't have to take notes on everything. Maybe pick a couple of good quotes. If you hear something you're like, oh, that's really good. We'd love those too. But yeah.
Well, I didn't see any questions in the chat, but if anybody wants to unmute and ask your questions, I would say just go for it.
Somebody asked about where the recordings are. Is that for the webinar here, or is that for our project?
Oh, I assumed it was for this webinar
Okay.
right now.
Okay. All right.
But your guys' recordings are within the story map.
Yes.
So Ariel, I know that you talked about the bloom on the story maps. That's also, somebody else had talked about how they love that effect. I also do. I think it's great. Anytime I see it in a map, I'm pumped about it. So
Yeah, it was Colby that taught me about it. So
yeah,
yeah.
Kobe actually held a little session for us to show us how she did that. So it was like, oh, great.
for anybody that's curious, you just create a second layer with different symbology. That's how we did it. So there's like the regular river and then the bloom river with a different layer, and we use different symbology to give it that bloom effect.
The double layering. It does so much work. It really does.
And the boundaries, I believe I provided that because the US Forest Service folks provided the boundaries for me. But I think Kobe went out and got the national parks boundaries on her own. So she added to what I provided. So yeah.
In the chat, I know Ariel, you just answered this, but the question being, do you have to be local to be involved? And that's a no. You guys can volunteer from wherever you are.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm in
I think-
Ohio, she's in California, so we're not local to each other at all.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
Kobe was in Boston at one point. So yeah.
Oh, man. We do have a question. Somebody is wondering, and maybe I'm not sure if either one of you or maybe could speak to this, but how Python was integrated into the work.
That was mainly to transfer everything from one organization to the other. And they did provide pretty much, I guess, 90% of, I think pretty much like 90% of what we needed to move the data over. And I don't know if it's called cloning as much as it's copy, but yeah, the terminology in the Python world or whatever they did as far as the instructions. And I think there is a instructional link within ISRI to how you do that. So
There is, and yeah, I can't say much more because Colby is the one that did this part.
Right.
And yeah, sorry. Sorry, we can't answer that a little better. That being said, if you are at any point transferring between organizations, Python is your friend for sure.
Do you, this is my, like to stem on that. Do you know if Colby used the notebooks in ArcGIS Online or was it through Python, like a desktop application, like the Python API?
I think it was probably the Python API.
Okay, great.
I'm actually going to copy a link into the chat. It's in the email on how to copy / clone content from one ArcGIS online organization to another. So you can kind of see that one. I found that email from the ISRI case number. Yeah.
Nice.
And let's see. Yeah, you have to have an account for some of this too. So yeah. And there's a token required. So or the actual Python API. Yeah, good question of that. Yeah, it's the app, the Python app.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great.
Just
right,
to
we can
close the
answer
loop on that organization. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Donna.
No, I said we answered a technical question.
I was also going to close the loop on the organizational transfer issue. So the way we are doing it now is that I have a license through California Tribal GIS's organization so that we don't have that issue anymore. Just in case anybody was curious how we're solving it at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and nonprofit license is only $100, so pretty lucky. And I just found out there is because I was trying to find out for the tribes that aren't federally recognized and they don't have a nonprofit. Because if you are a federally recognized tribe, you can go through the Bureau of Indian Affairs to get your licensing, and it's pretty much free for the tribes that are federally recognized. But the ones that are not, like my tribe, I have a nonprofit, so I used my nonprofit and went straight to ISRI. But there is a conservation license that you can get that they can apply to a non-federally recognized tribe. So they can get access to ISRI's license. And that's going to be explained at the summit, which is something I thought, oh, wow, I could have been a conservation license.
Yeah.
Because they give you a discount when you attend the annual ISRI conference for conservation groups. And I mean, really discounted. Like I got to pay $500 as a nonprofit, but if you're in the conservation circle, I think it's only like $100 to go to the conference. So I'll learn next time.
All good tips.
Well, I don't see anything else in the chat. And nobody wanted to speak up, which is okay.
Well,
Do you have something, Donna?
I was going to mention at the tribal summit that we're having, it's July 31st and August 1st. It's 2 days and it's being held in Sacramento at the Cal EPA building. And I will mention the women in GIS. I had early on, about a month ago or so, suggested in one of the meetings to have maybe a exhibit table by women in GIS, but at this point we're getting pretty full on the exhibit table. So sorry about that, but I will definitely put in a plug for the organization and maybe get some new folks, because there's a lot of women that work within state and federal and tribes that maybe would like to join women in GIS.
Well, great. I have one more slide, but pretty much I want to thank both Donna and Ariel. Colby also, even though she was not able to attend. And thank you guys for presenting today. The recording of this session should be on the YouTube that our outreach committee organizes, and I can't remember. I have August as our date for the next Women in GIS lightning talk session, because I think there is a holiday next month. So TBD on this, but again, thanks to everyone that attended and to everybody that listened. Yeah, looking forward to next month and looking forward to diving into more of the story map that you guys put together. It was awesome.
Thank you. It was a
Yeah.
good time, and I appreciate everyone who listened, and any feedback is always welcome. I'm that kind of person. So if you want to give me
Right.
feedback on ways to make it better, please feel free to send me a line.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone has a great day. Bye, everyone.